One of the more exciting events of the offseason for both college football and the NFL draft is the Senior Bowl, the Reese's Senior Bowl of all things in Mobile, Alabama. These are going to be games practices that feature some of the best talent heading into the 2025 NFL draft, and we're going to take a look at the top prospects participating. As always, we start with the quarterback position, and there are some very intriguing players for various reasons. Jalen Milroe is someone who has the raw talent to be a really exciting player at the next level. There are just some big time questions with his game as well. The athleticism stands out the most. The arm strength, that's going to be another thing that is in his favor. He is someone who can throw the ball deep. We've seen a really good deep ball from him, but does he have the touch? Does he have the ability to go through his progressions? Those are big time questions for Jalen Milroe, something that he's going to have to prove. Maybe he's going to be able to prove that here in Mobile, but maybe he's going to have to tell teams that, they're basically, his game is going to say, I need some time to develop, and maybe that's the best situation for him. Go to a team that has a starter, a veteran starter that he can learn from and learn how to develop those things. Honestly, I was surprised that he went to the NFL draft. I thought that maybe he needed another year, but here he is, and the right team could develop him into the right kind of player. Dillon Gabriel is a different story. This is a guy who, if you're looking for a guy who makes smart decisions, has decent, arm talent, and has good accuracy, this is your guy. He maybe doesn't have the velocity on his throws. Throws a really pretty deep ball, but maybe doesn't have the arm strength that some of these other players do. His size will be a concern as well, but we've seen in the NFL, it doesn't really matter. To a certain degree. So we'll see how much that actually affects him. But a veteran player who has the ability to make plays, we'll see which one of these players in terms of Milroe and Gabriel has the better career. Both of them bring different things to the table. Running back all of a sudden has a different value in the NFL, and I think that's great because this class has a ton of talent. Now, some of the top talent will not be participating at the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, any of these different bowl games, but there are definitely talented players to keep an eye on. Devin Neal is the first one that we'll talk about. This is someone who can create space. He has good long speed. He has the explosiveness. He has the tools to be an every down back. It's just certain things he's going to have to work on. Catching the ball, I think, is a concern for him, and his pass protection. There are aspects of his game that he must improve upon, and if he does, like I said, he's going to be an every down back. He has the tools to do that. He is going to be a really fun player, though, running the football. This is someone who can be an impact player, maybe on first and second down. If the right team has the third down back already, then he's in a good position to learn about how he can get better on those and improve upon those different things. Cam Scatabo is a different thing. He is a different kind of player. He is a physical runner, great contact balance, has the ability to break multiple tackles on any given run. The durability is going to be a question, and not because he's had injuries, but because of the amount of hits that he takes. Yes, it's really cool to see people break tackles and run over guys, but that takes a toll, and especially at the NFL level. He is going to obviously have success in that regard because he's not going to get tackled by one guy. But long term, if you're looking for a lengthier career, he's probably not your guy. Same thing with the speed. He doesn't have the ability to run away from people, but he is someone who is definitely going to be physical. And, maybe when you look at a fullback down the road, he could be that guy. If he's ready to fill that role, he could be someone that steps up and becomes that different position. The wide receiver position, also a very exciting group for the Senior Bowl. Elik Ayamaner is an underrated prospect in my opinion. Has the ability to make a ton of contested catches, 6'2", 210 pounds, good size, a good frame, that big body receiver that you want downfield. I think that he could be really exciting. Got to get some of the drops under control. I think those were concerned at times. And also, I think getting out of his breaks, his ability to create separation, that could be a concern at times as well. But he has that big body that we've seen dominate certain players that have NFL talent, certain corners. And he is someone that, again, on Stanford probably didn't get a ton of attention, but now is his time to shine. Xavier Restrepo is going to be, I think, a really good player. Your quarterback's best friend is a guy like him. He's a space creator, has the ability to get out of his breaks quickly. He understands leverage. He understands how to get into a break when his DB is not ready. His quickness, drops are not a concern for him. So those are going to be the things that he does really well. The long speed, maybe not necessarily there, but this is a guy who's going to make his living in the short to intermediate routes. Size is maybe a little bit of a concern, a little bit on the smaller frame. 198 pounds feels kind of generous on the Miami roster, but he is someone who's going to get open and going to be a quarterback's best friend. The tight end position is also interesting because you have a number of players that stand out already. Tyler Warren's obviously one of them, but we're going to take a look at guys at the Senior Bowl. Mason Taylor, the name obviously is going to get his foot in the door, but he also has the talent that's going to make teams notice him. And it'll be interesting to see how teams plan to utilize him, because I don't think that he was overly utilized in the LSU offense. I think that part of it is they had really good wide receivers, but this is a talent that didn't have the production that he probably should have. And it's not because of him. The athleticism is there, the quickness is there. Maybe the run blocking is a little bit of a concern, but really it's the production. You don't really necessarily know what you're going to get from him consistently because you just didn't see it. It's not a knock on him. He probably has it in him, but teams are going to have to figure out, is this a guy who's going to do it consistently or what's going to happen there? But he's a really fun player, really exciting, and an underrated player, honestly, to watch. Harold Fannin Jr. is another one. It's a name that people have been talking about for a while. He's a natural playmaker. Get the ball in his hands, and he is going to make something happen. He has good hands too, so you don't have to really worry about him catching the ball. Not afraid to take a ball over the middle and take a hit as he's catching it. So you're looking at a guy who has the production, has the ability to be really good at the next level. Unfortunately for him, playing in the MAC, playing at the Group of 5 level, the instant concern for a lot of people, which is honestly ridiculous, is the level of competition. Is this something that, he was just beaten up on worse competition? I just don't think that it's really that much of a concern. We see Group of 5 players come into the NFL all the time and are just fine. Harold Fannin fits into that mold as well, and he's going to be a really exciting player for whatever team drafts him. Offensive line is very interesting. We'll start with Armand Membo, and this is a guy who in the SEC faced a number of talented players. Good hands, very good at controlling his opponent with his hands. Good body control, doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, doesn't really have to worry about leverage a ton. His height at times is going to be a concern if you're playing offensive tackle. It's the reason why he's kind of listed as an inside lineman, so a guard position could be really good for him. There's a lot of good film that he shows. The reach maybe isn't there as well, but again, this is why we were going to have measurements. We'll see what that reach ends up being. Ariante Ursary is another guy, flying under the radar, but a guy who could potentially be a first-round pick according to some. It's just, again, it's going to be the right team. It's going to be the right fit. His size obviously is a pro for him, 6'6", 330 pounds. Agility is very good for his size as well. The anchor at times, I think he gets a little bit high. Hand usage, maybe he could use a little bit of work, but again, you're going to get a lot of coaching on that, and that's something you can definitely improve upon. Defensive ends are interesting because the defensive tackles are crazy at the Senior Bowl, but defensive ends are also really good. You had to remove a lot of people. You could also put edge. I put defensive ends because it's just easier to put some of these players in that position because that's what they played. Now, Nick Squirton is a very interesting player, a guy who comes in at 6'4", 285 pounds at defensive end. Teams may be tempted to move him inside to tackle, but we'll see what they end up doing. The size, he's a young player. He's going to turn 20 on draft night or on the draft. So he's going to be a young player that has a lot of potential going forward. The flexibility that he has at his size too, very interesting for a team. Again, this is a guy who should be a first-round pick, and you're going to see why at the Senior Bowl. Hand usage, again, some of the stuff is just technical stuff that teams are going to see. Yes, this is a concern, but you can fix those things. Maybe his speed isn't the greatest, but again, at 285 pounds, you can only be so fast before you're an absolute freak. So that's something that he could, slim down a little bit and add some speed to get around the edge a little bit better. But this is a guy that is going to be a first-round pick. I think he's going to be really exciting. Mike Green is another one. He is an underrated player. Again, Group of 5, level of competition concerns, but this is a guy who is explosive. He's athletic, and he was productive. Yes, he's playing in Sunbelt, but he is someone who is going to be an absolute problem for a lot of teams this year. He's going to be a really fun player to watch and another underrated player to keep an eye on. Defensive tackles at the Senior Bowl, absolutely loaded. Deion Walker is going to be one we talk about, and you also have Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart. There are a number of players that we could talk about at the defensive line position as a whole, but we'll start with Deion Walker for the tackles. Good size and good strength. This is something we've known for a while. 6'6", 345 pounds. I think that he is going to be really, really good in the trenches right off the bat. The physicality is not going to scare him. It's just the Are you going to be quick enough to get off the ball and beat your man? Are you going to be able to shed people late in the game? Conditioning is also a concern. Was conditioning a concern at Kentucky? Yes. And that's going to be a concern if the NFL teams don't get him figured out and get him on the right plan, but he is a talent that you just can't ignore. Jamari Caldwell is a little bit different story. 6'1", 340 pounds, so he still has that size. He just doesn't necessarily have the length or the height. The balance is there. The quickness is there. Very underrated quickness for a guy his size. And the other thing with the length is just his ability to shed blocks. If he does not get leverage, if he does not get his hands on his guy, he could be in trouble. Also, the pass rush. I think at times just not necessarily having a plan or really knowing what he's doing. Some of this, again, a lot of the stuff you can probably iron out at the next level, but you have to at least show the ability that you know how to do certain things. It's just a matter of how do you read your guy and what do you do with your plan of attack and how do you change that if you need to. Linebackers were honestly really easy to decide because there's two guys that I'm curious to see where they end up and how teams utilize them. Smail Mondon is one of them. Now, coming into the 2024 season, Smail Mondon needed to put on some size. And at 235 pounds, he's still probably a little bit small, but at the same time, you knew that he's capable of taking things seriously. Georgia put him on a plan to get bigger, and he's 220 pounds 2 years ago, and that was definitely noticeable on the field. You saw linemen kind of control him with ease, and he did what he could to make that happen and make his game better because of that size. Good length. I think that he has a really athletic frame, so that's really helpful. Tackling is very good for him. Again, as long as he's going to be able to keep that size on or maybe even add a little bit more, his ability to get to the football and tackle is really good. I think that his instincts could use a little bit of work. Sometimes he gets tricked in getting out of position, so those are certain things that could be a potential problem. He has a long injury history, so that could also shy some teams away from him. But it'll be fun to see how teams utilize him. He's a very athletic player that, again, is taking it seriously and knows what it takes to win. Colin Oliver is the other one. Now, the reason I put him here, 6'2", 240 pounds, started his career at Oklahoma State as an edge player. So is he going to play the edge? Probably not. But also, he's still relatively new to the linebacker position. Oklahoma State recently moved him back, and obviously he didn't play a ton this year because of injury. But this is a guy who I think has a versatile role at the next level. He could be a pass rusher. He could be a linebacker. I'm excited to see how teams decide to use him and see what they decide that he's best at doing. And then finally, we have defensive backs. There's a lot of them that you could talk about. We're going to start with two Big Ten players, and Sebastian Castro is the first one. I think a lot of people look at what Cooper DeJean's done. You have a number of players that have come from Iowa. Riley Moss. The secondary for Iowa has been really good, really exciting. And Sebastian Castro kind of flies under the radar even within the Iowa circles. He is a versatile player that's been moved all over at different positions. So he's good in run support. He's definitely capable of being physical. The motor is there. He's not going to quit on any play. The explosiveness just maybe isn't there. The aggressiveness also at times gets him out of position and could be a potential problem for him. But he is definitely a player that's going to be really exciting. He's going to win over the locker room because of his motor. He is not going to quit on a play. And again, sometimes it's all about getting your foot in the door and then impressing people from there. Sebastian Castro is one of those guys. Hunter Wohler is a guy to keep an eye on as well. Wisconsin safety, very physical, good size at the safety position. He is someone who is definitely capable of starting right away if he's in the right position, in the right team. Speed is maybe a little bit of concern. There's also concerns about hip stiffness. We'll see what happens there, but this is a guy who is definitely capable of being a really exciting player at the next level. I think that he is a natural playmaker, someone who has the ability to be a run stuffer or be able to drop back in coverage. Again, some of these guys have certain aspects of their game that need to be sorted out, but everybody's got strengths, everybody has weaknesses. It's just a matter of how do you separate yourself, how do you differentiate yourself from the rest. And some of these guys have the ability to do that. Some of them are going to get exposed at the Senior Bowl, but this is a really exciting time if you're an NFL draft enthusiast, if you're a college football fan that's excited to see where your players go. These are the types of things that are going to get you excited for the offseason.